Fighting games are one of my personal favorite genres, and there have been several titles that I have dipped my toes into over the last few years. Games like Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, BlazBlue, or even Street Fighter. The genre has always been super interesting to me, and I think even if I was never actually good, I still had fun times with friends and even had fun learning how the games were meant to be played. I have never been exactly the best at these games, but I have had an interest to learn them much more over the years. But after several games I played, where sure, I liked them, but never had the deep interest to learn them, one game did come along that I ironically bought and sort of paid no mind to until about 2 years ago. That game being Skullgirls, and it is my all-time favorite fighting game.
Try to keep it cute, huh? Showtime! An overwhelming victory!
Skullgirls was released on April 10th, 2012 on PlayStation Network in the good old Xbox Live Arcade. It is a 2D fighting game that merges Western and Eastern animation and design with the feel of fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom or even Street Fighter Third Strike. This was the first release known as Skullgirls, and was the very start of the game's growth into what it is today. The game was quickly praised for its art style, animations, character designs, stages, music, and just how the game played. Skullgirls sold over 50,000 units within 10 days on Xbox, making it the #1 Xbox arcade game sold at the time. It was also the third best-selling game on PlayStation Network as well, which alone proves that a lot of people had fallen in love with this dark deco 2D fighter. Honestly, I can't blame anyone though. The game has a unique blend of style and charm with the visuals and music, plus the most satisfying gameplay for a fighting game in my honest opinion. Then again, this is coming from someone who was just okay at most fighting games. Even a lot of critics' main complaints were the lack of characters and a lack of basic multiplayer features. With all this success though, an unfortunate circumstance occurred that put the original development team, Reverge Labs, at a loss. They were trying to put out post-game content, but sadly due to allegations of the publisher, Autumn Games, regarding Def Jam Rapstar, for some reason, they got cut for financial support. This hindered development quite a lot and made Reverge Labs have to lay off the entirety of the dev team. But a few months later in November that same year, they were able to reform as Lab Zero Games and launched an entire crowdfunded campaign through Indiegogo. This campaign had quite a hefty goal, but each point where a milestone was hit, they would add more post-game content into the game. Some things like adding new characters, new voices for announcers, and even just new variations of voices for characters. All these things that are being shown on screen were added over time and all were crowdfunded due to the amount of love fans and developers had towards this project. However, this game has quite the rocky history and got delisted due to the publisher Autumn Games, but was brought back onto digital stores later on, but now under the name Skullgirls Encore. Currently, Skullgirls is on the second Encore and is being published by Autumn Games still, along with being worked on by Hidden Variable Studios. Lab Zero disbanded due to a big controversy that I am not getting into, but most members merged and are now working with Hidden Variable Studios on new content for second Encore, under the name Future Club. But despite controversies and setbacks, the love for Skullgirls never seems to stop, and I think with all the new content coming out with the Season Pass, it will just keep on growing, especially this year. Fighting games are quite the ride, and honestly, Skullgirls is one of my all-time favorites of the genre. What makes a fighting game super fantastic is the character roster, mechanics, stages, and even how fun the game is to simply play, both on a casual level to a top tier level. Let's start off with the character roster. In the original Skullgirls, you had 8 characters, but now the full roster is now up to 14. technically 15, with Annie being added in the latest update in May. Each character is fun to play and learn combos for, and I enjoy almost all of them. Some I can't even play to save my life, while others I truly like to sit in training mode for hours and hours as I practice combos and such. The great thing about Skullgirls is it's a team-based fighter like that of Marvel vs. Capcom or Dragon Ball FighterZ, but the cool thing is you can change the character number on your team and the health will scale, so if you want to just play as Big Band and no one else, go for it. Speaking of teams, I think this playstyle is super well put into the game, and honestly, using 2 characters is extremely fun for me as someone who went back to this game after playing a lot of BlazBlue Cross Tag. I love how fluid the combos are and how satisfying the game feels to play, whether you use an arcade stick or a controller. It feels super fun to learn, and after several hours trying to be decent at the game, there is still so much to learn every time I hop on. Whether it's learning a new combo starter, learning a matchup, or just playing the game in general and learning from mistakes is super rewarding. It's that personal progress that I love so much from the genre, and it's found in spades here. Also, watching high-level Skullgirls players at tournaments is one of the most exciting things, and I would argue this is the game I love spectating the most. Who would have thought? The amount of fan love and dedication to keep this game up and running is up there with games like Marvel vs. Capcom and Melty Blood, and it's so ironic that this game feels like a merge of these two combined. Though there are a few things that I have failed to mention in regards to the gameplay. Story mode, which covers the main story of the game, I won't get into too many details, but just know all these characters are fighting for the Skull Heart or something closely related to it. Each story is really engaging, honestly, and lets you feel more attached to the characters you might have mained, but now you get to know more of their story. It's really interesting, and I really enjoyed my time with every character's story mode. Except Fukua. If you played Fukua's story, you know, and it was pretty rough. Survival mode, which is just an endless wave of fights, one after the other. You finish a match and keep the remaining health you had from that match into the next, and try to survive the best you can. That's all I have to say. It's pretty bare bones, but, you know, it's a pretty good palate cleanser and is fun once in a while. Then we have arcade mode, which has you go through a few matches and a boss at the end known as Marie, who to some isn't hard. Well, if you are one of the people that thinks she's easy to fight, allow me to introduce you to Marie 300%. I'm not even going to explain this. I will just let this totally perfect attempt I had show for itself. I always like games that find a way to use art style to merge and enhance the gameplay in creative ways, and I think Skullgirls nails that to a T. The game is not only fun to play, but also very pleasing to the eyes in my honest opinion, and it has always been a great game, even from the very start when I first played it. Art in video games matters so damn much to me, and I truthfully have never fallen in love with the game's art style as hard as I did with Skullgirls. The only other game that come close are Persona, and maybe a few select others. But Skullgirls is so unique with its approach to art, and it has stood out compared to other games and even other fighting games as well. Since we are talking about art in this game, we might as well discuss the lead artist behind a huge majority of the art, Alex Ahad, the lead art and story director. Alex himself has been doing art for quite some time and was a freelance artist for both WayForward and Gaia Interactive. Fun fact, he was actually the lead artist for Shantae Brisky's Revenge, which, by the way, great game, go play it. The art is very much inspired by both Eastern and Western elements. Even Alex himself has said such influences as Roger Rabbit, Batman, and even Gurren Lagann all helped inspire and help make his art stand out the way it does now. And it shows with every single character design in the game taking elements from various different aspects of animation. For example, look at Peacock. She is the embodiment of 30s cartoons, almost representing the era of Felix the Cat and Betty Boop from head to toe. But the art style makes it feel more unique in the way she is drawn despite the obvious inspirations. Even other characters all have unique color palettes that represent other forms of media. For instance, Eliza has a raven color palette from Teen Titans. Annie, who was recently added in a beta, has one from Star vs. the Forces of Evil, and Big Band has a Big the Cat palette from Sonic Adventure. I mean, every character in the game looks amazing and fits well with the style, which has been coined as Dark Deco. Dark Deco is a variation of the style known as Art Deco, an art style that is primarily associated with the mid-20s and early 30s. This game isn't the only one to use this, of course. With games like BioShock, it just oozes Art Deco from head to toe, with not only how stunning Rapture is, but the posters found within just scream Art Deco. However, Skullgirls is using Dark Deco, which was mainly seen in the animated Batman films and even other forms of animation throughout the years. The way the art complements the game's characters and even stages is above and beyond what I expect from a fighting game, and it's showing how not all video games need to look hyper-realistic and or look as pretty as Red Dead 2. Now, since we are all on the topic, why not mention that Alex Ahad might be the director of the art? It doesn't mean he's entirely alone in what he does. Several characters in the background of the various stages are submitted and commissioned from Indiegogo backers when the game was establishing its second encore. Some of these characters are really cool and honestly would be cool to see some playable, even if that isn't entirely possible. But a few of these background characters that can be seen are that of Zone Tan, Matthew McMuscles and Wooly Versus, and even Yuzuriha from Undernight. I find it so damn cool that they let so many of those who paid the $1,000 price tag to be eternally inside a fantastic fighting game. I mean, even more recently, Sonic Fox got put into the game as well in the training mode stage, which is pretty neat, honestly. Even the stages themselves are all really diverse and help complement and give the game this very unique charm. Each one looks different minus a few slight alterations like Maple Crest and Nightmare Crest, but every location is very interesting without even knowing the story, honestly. It matches the character art, and when seeing this game in action, it looks like a moving piece of artwork. Now that the art is out of the way, let me briefly tackle the animation. I have no prior knowledge of how animation works, but I do know if something is animated well, or so I hope. Skullgirls is a pretty game, and the art truly is why every single frame of said artwork goes above and beyond what I expect for a game. Every move and the way the characters jump, do special moves, and everything just flows so well. I get mesmerized at videos of combos being done solely for the animation of each hit, and watching it all play out, it's quite special. Each frame was hand-drawn as well, so no flash or anything of the sort. It really helps sell the whole Dark Deco art style that they went with here, and it shows in spades. Oddly enough, the background for these animators were that of Western animation, so similar stuff to Pixar and Disney. But due to the game being a blend of both Eastern and Western with the art, the animations flow as they should, and nothing feels out of place or wrong by any means. Here is a quote from the lead animator, Mario Cartwright, from 2011 on their blog post. For example, much of Japanese animation focuses on key poses with follow-through animation, such as flowing hair and clothes to create the motion. Western animation, on the other hand, is primarily focused on the overall motion and achieving as much flow with it as possible. Fighting games benefit from a more key pose-oriented approach to its animation, but I think we've been able to find a balance between strong poses and smooth animation that hopefully results in a unique look that separates us from other games. As you can tell, they spent a lot of time perfecting and making sure that this game was animated like no other. And despite the inspirations from games like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike and Darkstalkers, the way this game is animated feels wholly unique, in my honest opinion. Oh boy, the music. Have you ever had one of those games that you like playing and the music absolutely complements the game? Because Skullgirls should be one of those that you mention if you have played it beforehand. I have loved the soundtrack to this game for so long, and it is so damn fun to listen to while I play on various stages. Each song matches the tone of the setting so well, and my goodness, do all the songs stand out on their own. A lot of the music was composed by Michiru Yamane, who helped compose many of the Castlevania game soundtracks in the past. You also have a heap of other good composers that might not have as much background with games, but still make the soundtrack sound so good with their talent. Not to mention, all the songs excluding almost 2 or 3 are instrumentals only. All of these songs are so well put together and are structured in a way to keep the player engaged in fighting. Some of the songs are even perfectly used for the cutscenes as well, some being tense or straight up relaxing as can be. A lot of the music blends all sorts of genres, but at its core, a lot of it is here to complement the Deco art style. All of the songs have a similar jazzy, swing, or big band kind of vibe, if that makes any sense. And even with these three genres being the main big ones, I could point out that they made Skullgirls feel very unique in its approach to these genres and made it feel very fitting for a fighting game of its type. Also, side note, I know not all the songs are going to be fitting those three genres exactly, but most do. They really nailed the feeling of the art with each song, and after going through and listening to the entire soundtrack while making this video, I can safely say it has so much love poured into every note and melody. You can just feel the amount of love poured into each and every song as you play, and it wraps the game up in this nice little bow, honestly. For instance, here's the game with the music turned off. Now, here it is when it's on.
Go for it. Stand back. Make yourself beautiful.
See what I mean? I know the obvious is that you could put any song in the back and it would sort of convey that feeling, because I mean, a game without music is just odd, but the songs made for this game truly feel one of a kind and help convey these stages, cutscenes, characters, and almost everything this game offers. Even the menus are made extremely engaging with the UI and music accompanying it. My point being is that Skullgirls has a great soundtrack that I just cannot stop listening to. And you know what? I am perfectly okay with that. Skullgirls is a labor of love, and I can truly tell how much dedication the entire team put in on all fronts, from the art, animation, music, gameplay, voice acting, and just everything. The devs working on this game, whether they were new or ones that have stuck by this game since it was just called Skullgirls, have truly shaped this game to be what it is today. This game has had a rocky start and has been up and down quite a lot. But now we have the game out for almost any platform at the moment, including the Switch, the very first proper season pass that includes 4 new characters, one of which being Annie, and on top of that, the game just being better than it ever has been in my opinion. I am excited to see where this game goes in its upcoming season, and I am fully here on this hype train as we all get to witness the coolest fighting game grow up even more. With all that said, remember to stay safe and always, always, always stay hydrated. Thanks for watching.